Hello Math 8 students. This is Open Up Resources Unit 1, Lesson 15, Adding the Angles in a Triangle. This is the second part in our three-part video series for this lesson. You might remember from our last video that we had different triangles and we saw that in each one of these triangles, the angles all added up to 180 degrees. We finished with the question, is it always this way, or is it only because I chose these triangles that will specifically do that? Today we're going to address that question. What you're going to notice in Canvas, where you are viewing this video, you will see all of the stuff we did in our previous video. You will also see all of those triangles lined up because these three are the congruent ones. These three were the congruent ones, and so on. And so you can see, instead of that visual table where we wrote down the angles, you can see the angles and see that they add up to 180 degrees. So we did pick these triangles specifically, but is it going to happen every time? Here is where we're going to start today's lesson. In Activity 3, Tear It Up, Part 1. Part 1 is going to be today's video, and Part 2 is going to be tomorrow's video. It says your teacher will give you a page. You have options now. You can either print this page. When I click on that, it takes me to this document. You can print this page. It is a 2-page document, okay? What I did is I printed it side by side so that I only wasted one page, and we'll do half of that page one time and half of it the other. Or you can just print it as is and know that we're only going to be looking at the second page today. However you decide to do it is up to you. If you don't have access to a printer or don't want to print, I still want you to do this activity. I've created a PowerPoint that will allow you to do this digitally. So the cautionary note here is please make sure you save it to your own hard drive or your own OneDrive. Otherwise, any of the changes that you make are going to be in my master document, and I don't want that to happen. So let me show you what that's going to look like. When I click here right now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do open in an incognito window. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm already logged into my OneDrive, so it's not going to behave the same. You can just open link in a new tab or open in a new window. I'm going to do this incognito. And it does take us to a PowerPoint, but this PowerPoint is uneditable. You can see read only. You do not have permission to edit this file. You can try as hard as you want. You can see I've got all these pieces, but it's not letting me do anything with that. What you need to do is you need to save it as your own first. So I'm going to attempt to do this here. It says read only, you do not have permission to edit this file. Go ahead and dismiss that. And now I found it. Took me a second. You want to click on download as. Download as. I don't want you to do a PDF because that's going to be uneditable too. Download a copy. When you download a copy, you get this notification, your presentation is ready. So I click download, and now I do have it available. It might appear a little bit differently on your own screen, especially if you're using a Mac. It shows up here in the window or up here in the corner, but it did show up. So now I'm going to go ahead and open that. It's opening on my other screen. I'll have to pull it over. And here is my version, because it's saved on my computer, and when you go through this process it'll be your version that you saved on your computer. Still isn't going to let you edit because it is a download, so you will have to tell it, yes, enable editing, I do want to edit this. What you're going to do, and I'll switch back and forth, so this now is an editable digital file that kind of works like printing it and then cutting it up, and I'll return back to that when it's time. Let me finish giving these directions. Let me close out of that incognito. Now let's return to the lesson. So again, you can print it side by side like this. If you do that, or if you print it at one page at a time, just save this. This is going to be what we do in tomorrow's video. So save. If you printed, we're going to focus here on this. Okay? And what you're going to do is you are going to cut out each one of these triangles. When I say cut out, I do want you to be careful. Don't cut exactly on the black line, cut just outside of it. When you cut, I still want there to be a line forming that triangle. So kind of, I'm not even doing a good job of this. I would cut just to the outside. This would not be a good cut because it's still too far away. You see all of that white gap. So making the cut line right here is good. I can still see the original black line, but there's no white gap. So make sure you're cutting close, but still keep those black lines. Students who in class did not keep those black lines did have a little bit of a struggle. So cut out each triangle. Only continue the video once you have cut out each triangle. If you're doing it digitally, you can continue on to the digital instructions. Okay. Regardless of how you're doing this, this is the basic idea of how this is going to work. I've given you the page, or there's the link, with 3 triangles and a blank space. Cut out each triangle, cut the corners from each triangle, and see if they all line up to form 180 degrees. So you're going to see I do have this triangle here. This is not one of the triangles on your paper or on the digital file. This is the triangle that I'm using to model this. We're trying to see if they form 180 degrees. So we need to understand what a 180 degree angle looks like. Here's an acute angle. If I wanted to make this angle bigger, I can rotate it bigger. Looks like now it's 90 degrees. Now we've got an obtuse angle, and if I continue going, you can see that eventually it does form a straight angle, also known as 180 degrees. So we're trying to figure out if all of these angles in that triangle are going to make a 180 degree angle. So I'm going to cut the corners off of this triangle. What this looks like, you can see I've got this big triangle. I don't need to cut the triangle into pieces. I just need to cut these corners off. Okay? When I cut that corner off, you're going to notice that there is still some of that triangle, and that's okay. We're just focused on the corners. Now, don't cut too far down, because you want these pieces to be big enough that you can actually move them around and play around with them. If you do them too small, then that's going to be rather difficult. So I've cut off this corner. Looks like that. I'm going to start lining it up here on my straight angle of 180 degrees and see if I can get them to all line up. Again, I'm just cutting off this corner and cutting off this corner. Notice that when I cut off, there's still some triangle piece left. Don't worry about that triangle piece. We're not worried about the triangle, we're just worried about the angles. So this little piece of paper that you have left, that can go away. Now that I've cut off those corners, I've already got one lined up. I'm going to go ahead and line up this one because I don't have to do any rotations there. And I've got this third one. This needs to line up on that straight angle. So I'm matching up this arc with this arc and this arc, but it's not going the right way, so that means this one I am going to have to rotate. When I rotate it into place, it looks like it did line up to be that 180 degrees, which we're not surprised about. 60 plus 60 plus 60 is 180. That's what you're going to be doing for each one of these. I'm going to model this one more time using an actual piece of paper, triangle, and actual scissors. So again, here's the document camera. Here's my triangle. To get started, and this is something that you're definitely going to want to do, especially on the very last part of this assignment. Here's the angles. I'm going to put some little mark in the angles. Even if I just color them, when I start cutting these angles off of the triangle, sometimes we get lost in what we're trying to do, and so coloring in those angles helps me know what parts I want to lay down on that 180 degree line. This time for my 180 degree line, I'm just going to go ahead and use the edge of a ruler to be my straight edge, to be that straight angle. Okay. Now I'm going to snip off each one of those angles. So again, cut. Notice I'm not cutting too far down. I'm giving myself to actually play around and have some space. It flipped on me. I'm going to flip that back over. Cutting just the angle off. Giving myself a little bit of space, but just cutting the angle, and again, just cutting the angle. Notice I have this much of the triangle left. Toss it, it doesn't matter. We're focused on the angles, and we want to know, do they all line up to be that 180 degrees? I've got that lined up there. Rotating that one into place, lining it up. See how I'm piecing these green parts together? Now I know that we've got other angles here, but that piece is not part of the green part. I want to focus on that green part there. So I need to rotate that green part to be in place. And it looks like that one also formed 180 degrees. So again, the question is this happening every time? Or is it just because I've specifically chosen these triangles? Now that you have that idea, let me switch over to the digital version of this. Let's see how we can make it work. Here is the triangle with the hearts. To cut off these corners, I'm just moving that off, moving that off, and moving that off. Okay, so again, we can still see the triangle. We don't need to worry about that. We're focused on just these angles. Can we line them up to be 180 degrees? Again, we want to focus on the hearts all being connected together. So I'm just going to line those up, and you can see I've already kind of got a straight line forming. You might need to rotate yours, you might need to spin them around, but you can see that we've already got the basics. I already see a little bit of a straight line forming. This one, I'm trying to keep those hearts together, but you can see that that's not the way to do it. That space where I want them to be is all the way over there. So I've got to rotate that one into place. And it looks like it does form another 180 degree angle. I'm trying to get them to line up perfectly. It's not always going to be perfect, but instead of fighting with technology, we'll assume that yes, that did create a 180 degree angle. So I've also modeled and demonstrated how to use the digital version of this if you are not cutting them out yourself. So pause the video and finish it with the other triangles. I've done it with the heart. You have to do it with the other two triangles. Pause the video, do the activity, and return to the video when you're ready. Again, we already did the heart. Let's take a look at each of these other ones. Smiley face cutting off the corners. Here's that triangle still intact on the screen, but I'm trying to form these into a 180 degree angle. If you notice, I didn't even have to rotate these ones. I could just slide them. But this third one, I do need to rotate that one into place. Oops. Looks like yet another 180 degree angle. I'm going to write that down. Students who did this in class, tape these to a paper to include in their notes. Online learners, might be a good idea to do that as well. Tape them onto a blank paper or a line sheet of paper and show that these are indeed 180 degrees. And the last one, cutting off the corners. Cutting off the corners, and notice all I did is just slid those out, and I can already see that they're already kind of forming a straight angle here. This one looks like I need to rotate it into place. Put it in there, and yep, yet another 180 degree angle. So again, I chose these triangles. Is it happening because I created these triangles and I knew that they would work? What you're going to do now, if you printed this, there is a blank square. You can use that blank square, you can just draw it on your own. What I want you to do now is make your own triangle. Try and show that this isn't going to work all the time. Make your own triangle. Good students will make sure that they are using a straight edge. So again, instead of me trying to just draw a straight line that ends up being a little bit not so straight, we're actually going to use a straight line tool or a straight edge to create those nice crisp lines. Can you make a triangle where this isn't going to work? I'm making my triangle pretty big. That way when I cut off the corners will also be big enough that I can still play around with and use that. So make your triangle, make it look different than mine. Repeat that activity. Can you cut off the edges and form a 180 degree angle? Pause the video until you have completed your own triangle. And now that you have paused the video and completed your own triangle, I hope that you have come to the same conclusion, that yet again, we are seeing that all of those angles will add up to 180 degrees. It creates that straight angle. Even the one that you chose should have still worked. So hopefully we're now starting to see that it is going to be true for every triangle, that all of those angles will add up to 180 degrees. We're going to continue with a new activity tomorrow. That's it for today. We will see you next time.